Welcome to this week's Leadership Hacks. I want to talk about leadership drift today. I believe firmly that all of us, when we started into the ministry, started into leadership, that we had a mindset and we had goals to become dynamic and great leaders. I think we had goals to build the kingdom of God and build dynamic and mission-filled churches. I believe that firmly. And as firmly as that, I also firmly believe that none of us started out to be mediocre leaders, just coasting along, producing mediocre churches and mediocre disciples of Jesus. But all of us are susceptible to that. All of us are susceptible to leadership and mission drift. If we are not alert or watchful, if we're not continually learning and growing in our leadership, we'll find ourselves conforming to the status quo and lowering our expectations and lowering our standards. So I want to take the next few moments and look at three types of leaders, then to give some pointers and maybe some suggestions at the end. The first leader is the dying leader. This leader knows their church is dying. They know their ministry area is dying, and they are fine and happy with leading that ministry, that church to death and having a nice funeral for it. I don't think any of us started a church or leading a church or a ministry with the idea that we want to perform a nice funeral and when it dies. I don't believe that's what we started to do or wanted to do when we started. Third one is the building leader or the leader that builds. This leader strives for growth, is not satisfied with maintenance. This leader is a risk taker. This leader will bet the farm because they understand if they are not growing, they are declining, which means they're leading it to death. So they're going to bet the whole farm on it. They're going to give it everything they have because they believe that that ministry, that place that Jesus put them, is to grow and to flourish and keep growing and keep flourishing. John Maxwell said, "A leader who loves the status quo becomes a follower." The leader who likes the status quo becomes a follower. We need to get away from the status quo. Many church leaders today find their ministries, find their churches in a place of decline and are entering maybe into a place of a dying phase in their church. Some of this is because the pandemic that we're in right now, others because their church was starting to decline a little bit before this pandemic. But many of our churches and many of our leaders find ourselves in this place where we're on a death cycle, that we're beginning to die in our ministries and our churches. I want to talk about ways to turn that around. Donna Harrison said, "Great leaders are never satisfied with current levels of performance. They constantly strive for higher and higher levels of achievement." That's what we need to do. We, as a great leader, shouldn't be satisfied. We shouldn't just give in if we're in kind of this move towards death. We shouldn't just give in to it, but instead, we need to rise up in our performance. We need to rise up in faith. We need to find ways to birth new life into our ministries. Are we still striving to be better? Are we still looking to achieve more in our ministries? We need to. So let's take a few more moments to ask some hard questions. One, where am I in regard to the three types of leaders? I need to answer that question and be honest about it. Second, if we find ourselves in one of the first categories, are we willing and determined to become a building leader, willing and determined to become a builder and build the church and build that ministry? Here's a few suggestions I hope will be helpful to get us started. First one, acknowledge, pray, and determine to learn and retool. Acknowledge, pray, and determine to learn and retool. We need to, in this pandemic, we need to retool. We need to learn new things. And we need to acknowledge when we are slipping backwards and we are maybe plateauing or we are starting to decline and die. We need to acknowledge it. We need to pray about it, Jesus. We need to pray for his direction and then determine to learn and retool. Second, find some builders and visionary leaders in your community and build a learning and support team. Build a learning and support team with them. That's what we need to do. Let's look around in our community of leaders and find some builders and find some visionaries in that community, and then connect with them and build a support team so they could support you in going forward and help you and help lift you up to move forward. Third, find those in your church who are builders and put them on your leadership team. Find the ones that are builders and those who have faith and are visioning forward and put them on your leadership team if they're not already there. Fourth, take risk. Be willing to take the risk. What do you have to lose? If you're in a dying cycle, of a declining cycle, take risk. Builders, great leaders take risks. So I encourage you to do that. And lastly, fifth, find some younger risk takers. Put them on the team and give them authority. Find some younger risk takers, put them on your team and give them authority, and watch what will happen. They will inspire you, they will energize you, they will inspire and energize the church, and it'll begin to grow and grow. Thank you for today. I'll see you next week with another Leadership Hacks.